Sorry about that, everybody. So it looks like you can see Geshe and I all right. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. And you can hear us okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we're streaming also?
Yes.
Okay, then let's get the show on the road. Thanks, everybody. And sorry, sometimes, things happen. Mimi.
Yeah, dele.
Can everybody hear Geshe-la's voice all right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah, 다 간전데 리치는 루루치야 되다 다가세. 아니 소소치보도 되는 뭐 가시게 된다 많이 봐. 안 좀벌 시도 내두근 저요. 세지 유조가 되는 저요. 선바잖아. 근데 지체 침보요레스.
So as we continue with our session today, bring forth a motivation that thinks not only of yourself, but understanding that your own actions and thoughts are connected to the suffering and happiness of all sentient beings. Really try to bring forth a motivation that considers all sentient beings.
어떤 간주 강가는다는 좀 벌린데 보기시도 좋아지도 셀레지도 다시대야 보진대와 된대요 알아왔어.
And so, of course, when we cultivate this mentality, what this helps us to do is establish that thing that we all really hope for, right? Which is a world that is peaceful and harmonious.
어다테 어난 니마치니가 라가 머레레는 지테더니 뭐저 녀셔 자던디 저는 야르야르도 하겠냐스레스.
And of course, this is not something that is just going to happen overnight through a few good wishes, but it happens through the gradual transformation of ourselves as human beings, starting with 10 people, then maybe going to 20, and gradually expanding.
어다 던데기 치에다 담물이야 보데 단조 저체 얘가 도딘더 서려봐 노지 단조 때더니 저지비다 보 노지 자시 파로는도 저지비다 보 노지레스.
So when we think about this precious human rebirth, we talk about it possessing all of the freedoms and richnesses. And this precious rebirth that possesses all of the freedoms and richnesses is likened to that boat, right? Which can carry us across the ocean of samsara to freedom.
다 자손 노중세네 되나 니까도 기보대서 요하르테네 이나 가디 이나 드니지 소소게 뭐 말아.
And so, of course, you know that if you go out on the ocean for a little while, you may sort of enjoy yourself as you travel around on a nice boat. But you also know that you're not going to be on that boat forever. It's kind of the same thing with this human body. Yeah. So we can think of this human body that we have as kind of being on loan, just as when you go out for a day on the ocean or on the lake, right? Then you know that at the end of your leash, you'll have to get off the boat. It's like the same with this human body. But what we want to do is, well, we have this boat of the precious human rebirth. We want to use it to collect as many precious jewels as we can of positive potentialities. So in this part of the world, right, we see as we draw close to winter, the various animals making preparations. So we see that the squirrels, for whom those little nuts and seeds are like precious jewels, and they are so occupied finding them and storing them for later, right? So in addition to that, of course, we want to be able to have a human life which is peaceful, which is calm. And one of the tools that can help us to establish that goal is cultivating what are known as the 4 close placements of mindfulness. And really, as we observe these 4 close placements of mindfulness, our initial approach to this practice is just noticing, kind of being a little bit of a removed observer, almost like you were watching a movie or a play or a television show.
But
if you sit down for your session and your body and mind are already feeling well and relaxed and still, you don't necessarily need to cultivate these preliminary meditations. You can go right into it. So, for example, we've introduced many times the breathing mindfulness meditation, but the advice of the holy beings is that if one's mind is already kind of stilled and calm, you can go right to your meditation object. You don't need to do that breathing meditation. Again? But the posture is important, even if our mind is already feeling calm. So it's important to kind of sit upright with a straight back. This is something that the holy beings have really emphasized. So you don't find the explanations of why this posture is important physically so much in sutra, but it has to do with what we call in Tibetan the tsa uma, or the central channel. And for this channel to kind of be open and malleable, it's quite important to sit up straight, actually. So you can think of this tsa uma, this central channel, as not only being a channel through which energies move through, but a source of stability, just like a very strong pillar in the center of a large room. So once the tsa uma, once the central channel is in good alignment, then the channels to the right and to the left of that, and all of the other smaller energy channels that flow in our body, these can come into better alignment. Chagasana de chiudi e. Ale, so you'll notice that Geshe is kind of holding out his arms in a bit of a wide posture. Yeah. So it looks like two wings. So he's saying these two wings are compared to the wings of a vulture. They're kind of very wide and expansive. And it is said that, in fact, kind of establishing that breadth, that wideness in the posture is very good. It's a good contribution to our efforts to diminish the laxity or excitement that can derail our meditation. And so then this posture is often spoken of as the 7-point posture of Vairochana. And it's called the 7-point posture of Vairochana also because when we sit in this way, it creates the cause to achieve the holy body of Vairochana, right? Who is one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So also, just to talk a little bit about the perspective here, the 4 close placements of mindfulness are very important and useful meditation practices. However, they are not the most important thing, right? What we really want to do is use them as a stepping stone to come to a point where we can meditate on the 4 Arya truths, the 4 noble truths. So relating the 4 close placements of mindfulness and our experience of those to the 4 noble truths and to the 4 Dharma seals, this is something that is actually very useful and important. So we will proceed then now in a relaxed, peaceful way with our meditation.
리세 시와다 렐레 저기 somba
I will bring my body and mind into a state of stillness and peace.
세 라바가 손자 멜론 하다 바노지 강가 셀 특별히 조어들 파트너라 좀어도 년바 공용이도 마시네 다 렐레지
So think that all of our sort of scattered thoughts, projecting minds, it's a little bit like breathing ha onto a mirror. They gradually dissolve into our main mind.
노아도 소스 강가 셀 파터 자수는 세드마도다 공용다 밤에 반다고지 소크야레스
So think as all of these minds kind of absorb like that condensation into the central point, all of the appearances also dissolve. And we're sort of left with
세마도다 공라세 강가 셀 파터니 공용 메반다
we're left with a mind that is not thinking, that is completely free of thoughts.
세 코로요 이도 카도라서 바 공용 저거 주사 메바다 동송아라고 지사소
And then through experiencing this, think the mind has no form, no shape, no color, and so forth.
너나 이 가와질 따와이나요 짜와이는 저거 주사 때려면 손바까지 됐다
Wherever I try to locate that findable or pinpointable mind, I am not able to discern it. There is nothing pinpointable at all.
근데 있잖아요 라야 메바 손을 또 지금 세 코로 베드 메바요 레만데 다니아 조시 아래 손바지
So, because we can't locate some sort of findable, pinpointable mind, doesn't mean that there is no mind there at all, right? There is one that is designated dependently.
세 코로가 놀러나요 아니 베도 메베 세 녀모가 세 베도 요비 세 다숑바니 지라서 바다 나츠바지 아래 손바지
And we know that within kind of this formulation of the main mind, there are many different types of mind. Some of them, such as anger, attachment, and ignorance, are unhelpful, unwholesome minds. Others, such as love, compassion, patience, and so forth, are beneficial, wholesome minds.
다도 시라가 세미 여보제르지다 메누지 메이트네 중앙한테다 차와이자 중앙한테 메마서 그러와스 대누지 강이 그 진여모 강가 메마서 그래 손바지
And we can understand the mind as being like a space, right? The main mind is being like a space where these other minds wholesome and unwholesome kind of operate. So if we think of the method and wisdom practices, those positive minds, as being like a factor of heat, then we know that the coldness of the afflictions naturally falls away as we increase the power of those minds.
Tela tene kale kale lochen dembati dunga to kunju kanga meware zogare sewate tapa demba yasha jatomare sombachi ya lo dela tene dunga to kunju ni mewa zogare was tate demba yasha jare sombachi.
On the basis of cultivating these positive minds, which are true paths, we are able to overcome the true origins, as well as the true sufferings that arise due to that.
Tela tene roje kanga ta pake deshi ngine chige tatane jibulondo sayare wata te noji chita yongwachi sawata yo sombachi.
If I realize those Four Noble Truths and combine that with the method practices, then one can really reach a state of lasting happiness and be able to contribute to the happiness of others. We will request the blessings of the holy beings in order to be able to do that. So we'll begin with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. So Geshe said, because of Geshe asked if people are okay because we were delayed to those technical issues. Is it okay if we don't do the Heart Sutra today? Will people be really disappointed? No? Okay, yeah. So let's jump into the mandala offering and
Denpa Chungden De Deshin Shepa Da Chungpa Yongdapa Tsuke Songje Shepa Dong Shasu Denpa Dewa Shepa Jite Chenpa Shepa Leye Kalo Jowa Lana Mepa Lado Mino Je Denpa Songje Chungden De Pejawa Shaja Duwa La Chansa Ro Cheda Gyabzu
So a quick rendition, Geshe asked, of the mandala offering.
Saji Peja Shiji Meto Cho Raja Li Jo Nyo De Gyavando Sangye Shindu Mide Mbowa Yin Chogo Nanda Shena Cheba Rishu Idam Guru Rana Menda Kana Yata Yang
Refuge and bodhicitta.
Sanje je do zo je jo na la jo je ba do da ne sha su jo da ge je so no je do la be jo so je do ba jo sanje je do zo je jo na song je ba do da ne sha su jo da ge ji je je be so no Chola Bejo Sonje Loba Jo Sonje Chedon Sujo Jonam
La Jongju Bardu
Dane Shazo Jo Dagi Chenyen Jimbe Sononje Chola Bejo Sonje Loba Jo Oya, 다 당긴 다 맞아 통해서 그런 같이 모이자 다 대게 년론 잡았잖아. 당기 세 점만에서 노론의 세 년목수 안에 노조수 뒤 년목수 소소선도 왔어.
So when we are developing sort of our preliminary meditation, we talked about these four close placements of mindfulness. So one of the four close placements of mindfulness is the close placement of mindfulness upon the mind. And as we direct our mindfulness or awareness to the mind, we should notice two sort of thoughts that are arising, right? Those that are afflicted and those that are of the purified class, in other words, positive.
세 점만에서 라틴이 다 고델 코로 프레시고 차야지 로델시고 차야다 로담다요 알았어.
And on the basis of cultivating close placement of mindfulness upon the mind, one can actually cultivate true paths and also bring forth the result of true cessations.
어따 뒤는 노셀 다 간조 단단히 보고 가침보 다 가시 베지도니 단로가 이상조.
Kare.
다 세야가 동년 봐. 좋아.
Kare, kandis peshe tanki. So we'll do a meditation on the close placement of mindfulness on the mind, exploring these different pure thoughts and these afflicted thoughts that are arising. So to begin this meditation, we're going to inhale deeply, hold that for a moment, and exhale deeply 3 times. Think in this way, from breathing out the stale air, my body is purified, and also any discursive thoughts have been completely breathed out. They were breathed out into space and dissolve into the expanse like a rainbow into the sky. Think I will try to cultivate my mind to bring it to a state where it is a source of peace and happiness, not only for myself, but also for others.
Nyeme karakari yombatita. Yabo sonoto his.
So let us think about a time when anger has arisen in the mind and contemplate the disadvantages that we experienced from that anger.
Di gadi chil sele leva inayo. Soso pake nye netskanga pa. Kwa nila. Anin li se li madewa. Seki womya baso yaga ta nyatsa siwa chin sombachi.
Think how when that mind of anger arose, it became so overwhelming that you were out of touch with reality. And from that heightened, unrealistic state, both the mind and the body experienced unpleasant feelings.
Tetsuanda maze tani rondo nyondo yoke modo tandrodo ta sudo sina ta kibo me baso ke ta peto me be chala so chi re sombato.
And think, well, in that state, how did that affect the other beings around me? The animals, the human beings, and so forth that I was interacting with. As you contemplate, the disadvantages of anger should become clear.
Mago bal deshin juya ta gei an jgewa kanga konni pa me baso ke te ta korend sombato.
Similarly, from the causal, from the karmic perspective, this anger actually degenerates the causes of my future happiness and peace.
Kale shu to nyu to kale ko se noni pa pi to ba tende so ge sombachi.
So think, I will do my best first to decrease the frequency and intensity of this anger. Finally, to try to dispel it from my mind completely.
Eta yongwa la ta so so nye le shomba goma noji senche sudu sile ina ta zewa ngene shomba ngene chepa yole shin ro ge sombachi.
And having dispelled that, I will try to bring forth a mind, which is one of its opposites, which is a true love for sentient beings, based upon a feeling of holding them dear, that feeling of empathy.
Ndichi yongwa la soma no jinja bala ta sunji koma mato bala ta ma de iza ro so so ta na se ate ta sunji cha to ba zo yi sombato.
And so to really kind of bring forth that mind in its best possible expression and to really be able to help those beings as it wishes, a fully enlightened Buddha is most effectively able to do that. Therefore, may I actualize full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we'll pause there.
Yeah, you say,
Don't jump in, couple out if you go for that. Yes. So that is the motivation for as we embark on our session.
So,
and also remember that bringing forth this mind of bodhicitta necessarily involves two aspirations as its foundation, right? The aspiration to contribute to the welfare of beings and the aspiration to achieve enlightenment. Both of these. So Akusharab Gyatso, who composed very important treatises on Tantra, said that if practitioners have definite emergence, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, well cultivated before they embark on the Vajrayana practice, actually the Vajrayana realizations will unfold very easily.
So Akusharab
Gyatso says that actually it's not the tantric siddhis that are difficult to cultivate. Those are actually quite easy if one has the foundation in place. But it's that foundation of definite emergence, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness that is hard to kind of habituate ourselves to. And he says that actually once we have those three in place as our foundation, then our meditations on the generation stage will flow very naturally. And as we turn to our text, keep in mind that the attainment of this Buddhahood for the sake of all beings requires a perfect engagement with the practices of both method and wisdom. If we really want happiness for ourselves, realistically, what we need to do is to mix these two practices with our mind as much as possible. These practices of method and wisdom are what provide us shelter, and they are immediately available to us. If you were trapped in a heavy rainstorm and you had a house that you owned where you could stay, if you just stayed in the rain saying, "How I wish I was dry," that wouldn't make a lot of sense. And so actually this example we can talk about from the point of view of cultivating these practices of method and wisdom, and also from the point of view of cultivating the mind of refuge in the three jewels. So why do we say this? Why do the holy beings give these examples? Because we have all of these practices available to us, and we have an understanding of the practices, but somehow we are hesitant about entering into the practice when it will be most beneficial. So at first it's difficult to enter in, but once we enter in and develop those practices more and more, what we'll find is actually that we get happier and happier. So now we will turn to our text. Okay, so we'll turn first to the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra today. So where we are is verse number 16. So I'll read out verse number 16. As is understood by the distinction between aspiring to go and actually going, so the wise understand in turn the distinction between these two. So we're in chapter 1, verse 16, page 3 in the back. So we already talked a little bit about this example of having a plan, right, to go to a different city, making the plan and actually getting up and starting the journey towards it. So next we have a discussion of the benefits of the aspiring mind versus the engaging mind of bodhicitta. So the mind that thinks, I want to be able to lead all sentient beings to happiness, therefore I definitely must bring forth the full enlightenment of a Buddha, right? This aspiring mind is already something that is very beneficial.
Choba yina di doje palong chuju tiga chwa tsaya chi warwa ane je ganga lola se la so ba kare yina kiga pasni ne to gres se shiwas doje palong nyega mande kora keje sia doje palong yarwas doje palong powa ji wares powa koro halebi doje palong re powa ngene pedo yoba ji was ko kazi choba yina yo charo ge koro So
we can think of an example of a goblet which is made out of diamonds. And the goblet made out of diamonds is not only beautiful, it also has the function of holding that liquid. However, even if the goblet were somehow to fall and for some reason break, even though it was very hard, those shards of that goblet would still be diamonds, and henceforth they would still be precious.
And
that is and that is because even those shards of the diamond goblet, the value of the diamond exceeds that of any other gem.
Ane nyeti to rujala ta phage da chomba tejile yete kaze yores kanga phage sinjine thogres sinjine ba tele yagares tenda
ine sorry di pedang kandis namlu drogeres nga sepo kogemen tu pedang dabo kinemen tu chaya pet porba di chaya didang dabo kandesres
ta chaya
tari gimsen kadi
ta chaya nyusele des jogarwa yupa seshele
ale didang kadi
seshi was tende kilo gejarwa so so yagre gune geje yupa seshele ko jogarwas
yeah
ina yo tatu nyeti do roja ge yete kaze mag kaze yoba ina tele tene yagare di yare.
Thank you. I had to ask for some clarity. So I was asking, what is this the example for? I need to know that because I'm a little slow, right? So the broken diamond goblet and its shards, these are, see, I needed to know this. These are the aspiring mind. And although they are not as kind of functional as that goblet-like engaging mind, still, because they are made of diamonds, their brilliance outshines that of other gems. So in this way, the aspiring mind of enlightenment, even though it is not the complete mind, it outshines the realizations of the Hinayana, such as the hearers, solitary realizers, the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas. And so, because it is more powerful, subsequently, also the merits accumulated, even with this aspiring bodhicitta, are far more powerful than the merits accumulated by the Shravakas, the hearers, and the Pratyeka Buddhas, the solitary realizers.
손지 롱게 샤리부도 뭔가 버다 보게 체 토버레니 다좀바로 와스니 디도 드리가 어다 그 동반이 까와모 뭐 건발에 전지 생비가 디세 두디 니마질 건바데 배시 그래스.
So it is said that even those hearer disciples of the Buddha, these great Shravakas, Shariputra and Moggallāyana, right? Their hundreds of years of meditation are not as powerful as the meditation of a being for one day who has as their motivation bodhicitta.
어다 대용 단계대 노지레 손석 손바 자치줄라더니 뭐도 잡아라was.
And this is because, of course, behind the activity, there is a mind that is relatively limited or a mind that is very vast. So that affects the merit.
어다 단다 도제 방로고 빼대 너는 좀 뭐지 그 빼대 노인노는 수지가 숨바레스 도지
Dorje Palamgi Purba.
도제 발로도 로도라요 말was 단다 노고 빼대.
Yeah. So this example actually of that gem fashion goblet and those shards, this comes from the sutras of the Buddha himself.
어다 디그 메세가 빼대 말로이다. 디바.
So now we are going to go to verse number 17, which is going to talk further about those benefits.
쇼치 멤비 셀레나 코체 리부 첸주용 다른 주비 세저다 세노지 장유아메.
So verse number 17, although great fruits occur in cyclic existence from the mind that aspires to awaken, an uninterrupted flow of merit does not ensue as it does with the venturing mind. So venturing is what we translate almost always as engaging bodhicitta. So just understand it that way.
어다 멤버 셋이 다 멤버 셋이 언니까라요. 코알 아니 다스더니 녀레 체크 텔라 코알 데비까라요. 다 리버 대화 벌써 주바진 유야 유거레스. 시동바테니 대세긴도 왔어.
Younger Sonam?
베나 멤버 셋이 녀레 셰바 zonji. 코알 데비까라요. 리버 대화 벌써 주바지다 유거레스.
So even just this aspiring mind, right? The merits of that will be able to bring forth great happiness, great fruits, even while one still remains within samsara.
다 이나요. 유바 셋이 나는 유야 하거서와. 다 된 노지가 세노게 나는 세노도 개완 주거레베스인데 유마르다스.
But it doesn't have this same uninterrupted flow of accumulation of merit and experiences of the fruits of that benefit as the engaging mind does.
딘디바지. 다 유세가 배에도 솔로가 니사래와.
So now we come to the benefits of the engaging mind, which is verses 18 and 19.
소선 주 토토. 원에 주대 센체 컴 타이라드 도이시 모두 바이 세지스 세대 용도 롱제 바 데네 주대 니 로고 밤에 제주 세노슈 점체바 담마시 노칸뇨바 라든주 슬로가니.
So verses 18 and 19, benefits of the engaging mind. And for him who has perfectly seized this mind, with the thought never to turn away, from totally liberating the infinite forms of life, from that time hence, even while asleep or unconcerned, a force of merit equal to the sky will perpetually ensue.
어떻게 절리라 오셔봐이나 아니 메세테 야슈 저와도 슈치는 돈이라다 아니 유세뇨레 지지바지 네바지 아니 조지선비 돈바텔라테네 돈발레마이나스.
So this is kind of explaining what's going to happen if we bring forth that engaging mind. Definitely I will achieve enlightenment for beings. And we also take the Bodhisattva vows or precepts combined with that. What's the result of that?
다 던지가 당아로서도 쓰이나요. 던지가 맞텔라 아니 니구가 있나래 초전로와 있나래 칼라사가 있나 다가제 다 깨자 아시아바 있나요. 아니 디게 니팔라테네 개와 아니 잡아봐봐 누진주데 그래.
It's telling us that a person who has brought forth that engaging mind and taken the Bodhisattva vows, he or she, even while they are asleep or unconcerned, means not particularly mindful, maybe just kind of going about their business, conversing with people and things like that. Even then, because of the power of that mind and vows, there will be a continuous rain of virtue that is falling.
어다 배다 던지 자체만 노카도뇨 바치다 보게 잡아봐봐 누진주데 다 할래 네스라와스.
So that is a merit that is vast as the sky, a merit that is like a continuously falling rain.
딘디바지 다 디고 콘데레 콘
Yeah. So now we come to verse number 20. This is the scriptural authority. The scriptural authority.
예시들을
Nishu.
너는 태바 동제바 라존게나 시발에 매미 세제 된지시 대지시바 니지수
For the sake of those inclined towards the lesser vehicle, this was logically asserted by the Tathagata himself in the sutra requested by Subahu.
어따때 연바데 소지근 돈은 너는 전주산바 라존세 아티가다 야 저와트니라 텔마 페 페수야데 아니 센제 다 멤버세나 만두 거로다 버게 소와 슈처럼 만도케리야 슈처럼 도이게 된다 소지 야 전주지 센뇨레 슈 잡고뇨레 메시기 와라와 대진뇨레 슈처럼 도야게 제다 아니야 어따 페드 수바레스.
So this particular sutra, it was requested by this being Subahu. So Subahu in this sutra asks Buddha a question about the benefits of bodhicitta in order that those who kind of have a wavering aspiration, perhaps, those bodhisattvas, could bring it forth more powerfully. So it was really a sutra about the benefits.
And
that makes sense, right? Because if we're not able to kind of cultivate something with full force, sometimes if we hear about the benefits of doing so, this will help us to engage really strongly. So it is said that once the feeling for bodhicitta is kind of brought forth firmly within the mind, this becomes like a seed. Sabun courage chigire? And once the seed is firmly planted in the ground, right, then we are much closer to being able to reap the harvest of the results. And in addition to that, this mind has a magnifying sort of power, a power to magnify, to extend the strength of all of the merits that one accumulates. So we see that the benefits that Geshe mentioned, they are not in the root text, but if you consult the sutra that is cited here, you'll see a more extensive explanation.
And we can
see that also these minds, right, they become something that cares for us, almost like a mother or a father. They protect us just like a parent would, just like a parent wants to protect their child to make sure they can go in a good direction.
So that
mind of bodhicitta, once it is brought forth, it's like a really good parent who always leads us towards the path of happiness and good. And so now there the actions of so I think under the next headline it's verses 21 and 22, actions of virtues achieved become limitless.
So
it's just saying that whatever kind of potential is accumulated with this mind, it becomes more powerful, more beneficial, more able to bring forth a result. If even the thought to relieve living creatures of merely a headache is a beneficial intention endowed with infinite goodness, then what need is there to mention the wish to dispel their inconceivable misery, wishing every single one of them to realize boundless good qualities.
다 레바게 나산다고 세게 다 거로바게 나산다만 요아라와스 든디질로 소노 돈에 오타 땡에 메바조기 소바 레바 이나요 페 자침보레세 케자모시 흔두와
Semjinchiki.
세지지나 다자로 가시나
So it's talking about a mind, right, that wants to relieve a very specific type of suffering of a being or a group of beings, thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could help them get rid of their headaches, right? That's actually a very beneficial mind.
다다 또 제가 니바체가 가시고 오단 좀 물린데 내 강강이 메바서야 내가 지기 손수 요금키들이 다다 비도버튼 용기 아래스
Or you might get a doctor or a researcher, right, who brings forth a really strong altruistic thought that I want to be able to develop something that is going to be able to clear away all the illnesses of human beings.
손sol로 maybe 잡었던 게 잡아고 좀 쓰이요 아래스 용기 아래스 마이나 maybe 잡았던 게 잡아요 다다들 뭐
상기 멤버요.
야 대나도
알레.
maybe 잡았어요
콘소당 케지시기래다.
maybe 잡았던 게 용기 아래스 멤버를 잡았더니라
알레.
야 좀벌레 멤버한테 요
Yeah. So also we can think of some of these doctors actually with those really altruistic intentions as possibly being emanations of the medicine Buddha, Bodhisattva Guru.
주파 세제디가 센제 용어서 주발로 소노토네 뒷강에 강강에 매바서기 대시 강강에 저기 세계에서 다 텔페 시에서 말아봤어.
So if those minds, right, thinking that I want all beings to be free of a specific kind of suffering or illness, have a vast kind of results of infinite goodness, then how much more powerful is this engaging mind of bodhicitta that wishes to achieve enlightenment, not only to free beings from a certain suffering, but from all suffering and lead them to perfect happiness.
That's in the lion in a torch level, that give what Tesoyo Mare. Then it is with the Shawan and Shawan Copa, then don't progress.
So someone who brings forth this mind, not only is it powerful enough to transform that lifetime into one of happiness, but it creates the causes for happy lifetime to happy lifetime in the future. So when we think of the benefits in this way, this actually helps us to see the importance of this mind more and more clearly and helps us to draw closer and closer to being able to develop it. And now the next verses are explaining how the mind of bodhicitta rooted in love and compassion, there is nothing of greater benefit than this. So in this verse explaining there's nothing of greater benefit than this, 23. Do even fathers and mothers have such a benevolent intention as this? Do gods and sages, does even Brahma have it? So any person, most people, you could say, in the world, when they think of others, they think of those who are kindest to them as the most important, often as being their mother and father. And of course, the vast majority of parents, they do have an intention that they want to be able to provide the facilities for their child to have as little suffering as possible and to be able to experience a happy life. This is the vast majority. And so there is empathy between parents and their children, genuine love and affection between parents and their children. but not of that same kind of powerful intensity as we have with bodhicitta.
다요 라츠바도 자주도 데르지다 코로스 코고를 요케급다 양 생제를 자와 첨보도 할레베트네 여버츠가 야르바스.
So then it mentions other gods and sages, and specifically Brahma, and these are all considered to be benevolent deities, right, who really have the well-being of humans at their heart.
어다 대지랑요 단다 던디그 패세 가와타 리워케 자르마도 슈울 거를 요토가 야마레스.
But they don't even come close. None of those examples even come close to a kind of powerful altruistic mind at the same level as bodhicitta.
어다 던디그 때니 야숑바도 니지 자와지비쇼 유세텔 코로선스 비다버 던디지 야레스.
That shows us the kind of unfathomable positive power or potential of this bodhicitta rooted in love and compassion.
던디그 선스 야보지 야바이나 다 딘지베 야보 조야 메바타 메나 베시기 마르바스.
So if we think about the result being concordant with the cause, then a mind that is so unfathomably powerful, it must have to bring forth a great result. It couldn't be something minor.
야 디스마. 다요 된다고는 거래 디고티다.
Los.
예도 롱게 된다요 만주 센제 대세 공센제 리지 체반다 나나메 메지 투에세.
If those beings have never before ever dreamt of such an attitude for their own sake, how would it ever arise for the sake of others?
어다 파말라 소바도 니 간디지나요 던디그 세체네 파시 아니시 만유한다고 지레디요 아레스.
And so, the power of this bodhicitta mind, right? If the beings that were mentioned above couldn't have that kind of altruistic intention, even for themselves, even for their own benefit, how could they bring it forth for other people?
어다 던디그 세자 첨보테다 뇽레시키우 겜보. 아니 어다 할레야 그들버게 겜보레 다니야 서된다 어다 첨보지고 계시지요 아레스.
So this is talking about the practitioners of this mind, that practitioners of bodhicitta are something exceedingly rare, and that they are also forces of extremely powerful benefit. So what we should do as we read these verses is contemplate those benefits kind of deeply, so that a wish that I definitely will achieve this arises in our mental continuum. And so then the next verses, yes, it's continuing to explain, if you really practice the engaging bodhicitta mind, right, these are the kind of positive things that will come about. The intention to benefit all beings, which does not arise in others, even for their own sake, is an extraordinary jewel of the mind, and its birth is an unprecedented wonder. So it is something that stands out as a jewel from amongst all the other positive things, just as gold stands out from any other precious metal. And why is this the case? So I should have stopped mid-sentence, but anyways, I'll translate what we have. So, Young Sundong.
Why
is this the case? Because this positive mind wishes to benefit every sentient being without any attitude of differentiation or prejudice. So because it has that all-inclusive attitude, completely free of any bias or prejudice, the field of positivity that it cultivates is much greater than any other mind.
어딘데 봤지? 다 대고 대용조 다 콘트 다 태바들 지세지요. 편바송바 zon지중 소지체리 체바나 센제만리 도제 데데제와 메지기
Chatsangwa, natsu chatsangwa me paswegi menti, right?
말말 편바송바 zon지중 토마소 편바송바 zon지중 소나사소 가자가시야 근데 변바는 있는 건 같아. 그까지 편바송바
Pemba sampa samgi kyang.
소지체리 체바나 센제만리 통제제 데데제와 메지기
Gansu chik dromason, sorry.
로산로산한로 사다네.
Gansu di chatsangwa gi mendi, natsu chatsangwa me paswegi mendi, di dromason. We've skipped over one verse, I think.
로산로사치스.
Ah.
로사가 가운데 센제 차송을 내봤다.
Ngana mepe menchi kung joa kungi
대단히
gaji gyu
예,
tension
진짜
dunye
이제 많이 와대. 이제 와서 이 스탄게데 자서.
Di loma sonchira. So
닐로이.
ngalogi. So how can I fathom from the depths of my mind, of the goodness of this jewel of the mind, the panacea that relieves the world of pain and is the source of all its joy? Dene nishsa dunjwa. If merely a benevolent intention excels venerating the Buddhas, then what need to mention striving to make all beings without exception happy?
센제 통제라더니 센제 통제라 편바 저기 솜바시와 zon지. 소지 용서를 체와 표현을 줬더니 아니 그 배체가 세세근도 왔어.
So really, just wishing to benefit a sentient being, the merit of that is far more powerful than making offerings to all of the Buddhas, right? This shows us how important this practice is in relation to others. And so you can kind of develop an understanding of this, for example, by also thinking about the minds that underpin bodhicitta, such as love, and the benefits of love that are explained, for example, in the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And if just having a benevolent intention for one being is more powerful than making all of those offerings to the Buddhas, then think about how much more powerful even than that is a mind that definitely promises to work for the sake of all beings, that engaging mind. So, really, when you think about the field of cultivation of this engaging mind, it really makes sense that it would be a much more powerful practice than making offerings or helping a single being. So now we will turn to our discussion of wisdom, the Heart Sutra. Shloka Chitenden. Shloka Chitenden. So we now come to the Heart Sutra.
So Geshe
said that one of the reasons that, so we're in Prayers for Teaching Occasions, pages 8 and 9. One of the reasons that he hasn't explained the praise to the perfection of wisdom, the one that goes the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, is because it's hard to figure out, to pinpoint who exactly the author is.
This one, all muscle Jimmy Shira Parosh, Mashimango, knocking on Toswa. So Ruri, this Jayula Chancellor, said, to money, Korope, pays and Yaris.
So the verse, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, unproduced, unceasing, the nature of space, object of the uniquely knowing transcendental wisdom, to the mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times, I prostrate. This is really a verse kind of extolling the meaning and the benefits of emptiness. Tomba chomnandegi pukudi korangi ama
Deva Piwares,
Piwares.
Shulokade.
So one understanding of this verse is actually that it was spoken by Rahula, the son of the Buddha, as a verse of praise not only to emptiness, but also to his mother.
Akasarta Mombochi tende washram to state in the Samaresata, Kabamochi Tesiares.
But there are a lot of scholars who dispute this claim and say that we don't really have any evidence, certainly scriptural evidence, that can prove that it was Rahula who spoke this verse.
Mombochi Keje Shawatso and Tendisikiares.
Kenshin Shiwatso. Some say that in fact this verse comes from the great Pandita Shantarakshita. That when he was explaining emptiness, Shantarakshita kind of spoke this verse. So Geshe is of the feeling that we can't really say it's one or the other, or really source this verse definitively. So definitely we see the verse appearing in different places together with the sutra and also cited in different commentaries, but often the source of the verse is not given, right? The author. So there's more to say about that. But Geshe wants to get into the sutra itself, so we'll maybe leave that for another time. So remember that we spoke about the beginning part of the Heart Sutra as being sort of a preamble. And we spoke about the Heart Sutra's preamble as having kind of two parts, the common preamble and the uncommon preamble.
So
Geshe is kind of emphasizing these various sections of the sutra and sometimes going over these again or presenting them from different angles so that hopefully you have the structure of the sutra firmly within your mind, because that's really going to help you improve your understanding. So thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan. So we explained this quite at length. And we explained this word Bhagavan, especially in the Tibetan translation of this Chomden De, as being something that we need to achieve. The Chom indicates to destroy, to annihilate the four maras. This is an object of attainment, something we want to achieve. Yeah. But there's another way to understand this word chom, which means to destroy or to annihilate, not connected with the annihilation of the four maras. So one way of understanding this word destroy given in another commentary is that chom means to annihilate, starting from the result of suffering, its causes of karma and affliction, as well as the imprints left behind by the afflictions. This is what is to be destroyed or annihilated. If we can reach this state of completely dispelling resultant suffering, its causes of karma and affliction, as well as the imprints left behind by those, then one is Buddhified, right? One is enlightened. Yeah. So if those four are destroyed, one has become fully enlightened.
다 가서 내 벌써 수바데 임바싱 안조.
So now we come to the Bhagavan was dwelling on Mass Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha. We talked about this place of Mass Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha related to the Punsumsopa Trup, ne Punsumsopa.
내 벌써 수바데
We
와스.
talked to them about relating to the 6 excellences, specifically the excellent abode.
다 녀만 좀 되는 자가라 아니 자주 주세요. 거러 사제 진도 와스.
The lepa trup mare lepa jinga chana.
다 레바 주도 맞았어. 아데.
Let's sunda.
다 자비카서 사제때 가와래서나. 네 자가를 보게 다 자주 주세요. 되네. 사제 내 진도 와스.
So one may ask, like, where is this location of Raja Griha? Sajadi kawayeres. Dene kawadi.
자주 주세요. 사제들 메라.
Ale. Truk dinso nanglo yere truk dinso chatsangwa.
저도 주도 맞았어. 내가 자가를 자주 주세요. 사제 진도 와스. 자보대 사지 자보여 사지.
Ale. It refers to a land.
한게 진짜 자주 주세요. 뭐도 자주 중. 야비카서 자주 알아왔어. 자주 주세요. 되려. 다 알테니 대화 기시게 걸어.
Lo.
제 말다. sorry. 자주 주세요. tem부터
Di
걸어.
mare di nyangin le desa dene.
매미 세시was 되려. 엄마 자보트는 두와스.
Ale. So kandes gyaubo kap ni rwa gyaubo chigyore.
자보여 아래서 뭐요 알아왔어.
So in Rajagriha, there was a particular king.
다 디디가라 얘네 때문에 엄마 이거 내가 바치라 때네. 쿠바 강간님 총sol 군단 공걸 쿠바 멜쇼로 알아스.
And at that time, mimayempagi dudenso kamba mebasogi.
그도 멜 쿠바 멜쇼 또 메타 동로 알아스. 쿠마 카시.
That time in the evenings, there were non-human beings who were destroying the houses overnight, overnight in this land of Rajagriha.
다 때니 자보티가 내마질 첨무존이라. 다들은 마다 깨자시긴도와. 야보티 트라우저는 다 소소소 공부하다 보야 봐마 작으면 좋았어. 다 공부 심면 쇼아이나. 드제 놀 판로고요스 맞대.
Kavala?
드제 스위차. 바보고요스.
Ale karinsena konso kamba yabo sungyo.
야보다 보자 작으면 되었어.
And so the king said that this was happening due to the carelessness of the inhabitants not watching over their homes properly over the course of the night. And to kind of get rid of this attitude of carelessness, he said that whoever's house is burned will have to go and dwell in the charnel ground.
다 때니자 첨무조사에 지구텔 뒷군다 군다 동보텔라. 자보코로 쿠바멜 쇼스.
And after he issued this edict, the very next night, the king's palace actually burned to the ground.
때니 자보코로 쳐자 차이자. 코로 쳐다 자보야 버리사로스. 어느 코로 트렐 바보아레스.
But since he was an honest king, he thought, since I issued this edict, I have to actually follow the law that I myself set. So he then went to go and dwell in the charnel ground.
다 던지게 트레 스위 차세다 자비카세다 텔메데 데렌도스.
And so this place became known as Rajagriha. So Raja means king. It's the home of the king. Dinde dutra, right?
아까서와 데데데데텔레지마 자보포차와이자 tane 사제텔 자비카스.
So because that charnel ground was inhabited by that king, it became known as Rajagriha. I think Griha is something like a house or a dwelling, and the Raja is king. So the king's dwelling place.
다 된다 네 될라 된다 tane 첨바 요바데오 tane 치수자들 시라니 보수자들 야바데 고그레스.
And so then Sherminpo de la Sumbarestonda.
첨바 라주 많이 봐 요바데 될라데니 고그레스 tane 세기야레스. 시라니 뭐 손지 순거로 왔어. 시라니 뭐 수사가 밀라 강가 라주 마레 첨바고 요레스. 자비카스 시텔.
And so when we mention Rajagriha as a place where the Heart Sutra was spoken, one of the things we can understand is this was not spoken exclusively to the bhikshus and bhikshunis, to the monastic sangha. It was also spoken to householders.
다 샤게 핀비르 샤테 다 모고시 차와 샤게 돈다 유지야 이자 던데지 다 던데시 자도 모모요아레스
So Massive Vultures Mountain is known by this name because of the vultures that would often fly over and assemble on its peak.
텔라 테네르테네 드자텔라 시라님 보고 드자텔라 라주요 바데오 고그레스 던데시 요아레스
And so this kind of austere setting with the vultures represents renunciation or definite emergence, which also lets us know that there were ordained bhikshus and bhikshunis present at the teaching.
단데서 다 견루가 견데 쳔보동 세나 어느 니테도 루자요 바 던데오 고야요 아레스
When we talk about a great community of monks, it means that amongst that community, it is great because there are Shravakas, hearers, and Pratyeka Buddhas, solitary realizers that are present.
카셰가 다 거럽게 했더니 동바요케가 다 견루 텔코키고요 아레 카셰가 세는데 타바뇨 타발은 로야가 뇨레 체키니 데도 루자오 고그레 니테 고그레스 견루 세아테
Yeah.
견루 세레
Yeah.
카셰가 선 잡아 라주 견루 세아요아로와
Yeah.
텔로 고그레스
Yeah.
카셰가 선 데마레스
Ale.
니테도 니테라요 고그레스
Niente. Rabjung Mayenge.
라주
Titi
마이
Malas Escotons. Yeah.
니테는 다 타발은 로키와로와
Yeah.
텔로 고그레스
Trabajo Hakone.
타바주도 마체스 아지 타바 세시 와서 갤론세 아친두아스
Yes.
카시가선 타발로 고그레스 카시가 테마리 니틸 고그레스
So some people say that monks or bhikshu, the word gelong, should not be understood only as monk in this case. It should also be understood as hearer.
갤론세나 게와세나 타발은 로이가 다 뇨레 체키 게와 롱와세나 텔프게 유키텔 로키테스 그레스
So ge actually means virtue. In this case, ge indicates the virtue of one who is going to liberation.
아코송 오다 테니컬 데시자요 아레스 저도
So one can have the understanding of both.
갤론가 겐데 쳔보동 다 손주 셈비 겐데 쳔보동 세레 다 손주 셈바 다 이나 테바 쳔볼 로케스 고그르와스
And then the great community of bodhisattvas. So we understand bodhisattvas, right, as those practicing the great vehicle.
오다 디게 토모이 리제티 알레 디디스도 차이케체체
So this is the common,
토모
this is the
그래서
common preamble.
다 디세 쪼된데 사모노와 시작이 지정동조 지띵한달라뇨 바 주유소 대토모마인 빌리죠
At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. This is the uncommon preamble.
대대시 뭐시 가수시 사와임바스 다 용어 디세 손주 선바 선바지 뭐 보바 시리즈 우슈 시라제 바로 다시 마 사메시바니라 노바 따시 부모가 대다라요 로지지 동반 노바 따고 사야데 좋아질래 다 년도라고 리죠
Yeah. And so we explained that previous point about being absorbed in the concentration. So now we come to, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent existence. This is the preamble to the question that's going to come.
됐어. 다 딜간절을 바쁘게 가르쳐가고 개선자고 지에 전주 선바 첨보 세사지 디와스.
Yeah.
다 디텐다를 켜네. 개발성 내세 자거를 전주 선바 동보대.
Yeah.
롱게 된다. 아니 손지지 공부. 법안대봐.
로스.
선바 첨보서나 루지 되는 예 용조가 된다. 아니 손지지 공부 법안대봐.
So there's another way we can understand the etymology of the words Jangchub Sempa Chempo, which is Bodhisattva Mahasattva, or Bodhisattva Great Being. We can understand the first Bodhisattva to talk about that aspiration to achieve enlightenment for oneself, to secure one's own welfare. And we can understand Mahasattva, the Great Being, as that part of the bodhicitta mind that aspires for the welfare of others.
So
that's nice because it shows you that not only one's own welfare, that's not sufficient. One also needs to strive for the welfare of others. Yes. So beholding those five aggregates as empty of inherent existence, who is doing this? It is Avalokiteshvara. Yes. So, Dilas.
텔라서로 다 핀봉아버 대다 라용스 용다데 또 같이 못 쓰야래서
Pumbungapo de la yang. Yang di.
용어때 할래 같이 못다 야이는 매바다고 지금 그들이 수기도 왔어.
So beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent existence. This word yang also is very important.
다때야 가족 다 레라쇼도 계시 봐이나 아니 고자 나이 띵거더니 고자 여러와 고자가 띵거 뚱반이라 놈바 잡아 마세 따와 마세
Yeah.
핀봉아라용 고자기 다자 로지 뚱반 놈바
Yeah.
따니 되야래.
So this means that not only is the self empty of being inherently existent. Dag serie di tombores di mase rua konsogi dag jidi pumbunga denso yang tombores.
고자스는 야가 말해 다세가
Gangsa. Also, the basis of the designation of the I or the self, which is those five aggregates, they're also empty. So not only the being, but the basis of its designation are empty of inherent existence.
다 대세게 가르레서 간조 뚱반이나 다 치강게 띠데 뚱반이 차디 와라스 이나 이 진유조와 이나 다메니는 로야레스.
So, of course, we want to realize the emptiness of both self and all phenomena. So the emptiness of all things. But here, in the words of the sutra, it's trying to give us this kind of in a capsule. So first, starting with that understanding that yes, the self is empty, but also understanding its basis of designation, its five aggregates, and hence all phenomena are empty.
다들 딱게 좀 먼저 베시도 보시게 이렇게 되어서 고자게 다음에 요 뚱반이 요조데 고자게 다음에도 치지 다음에 뚱반이는 이는 로야레스.
So we can understand these words as saying that all things can fit into the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena.
다원아 고자 로지 집에 동화 핀보 로지 집에 동화 세근도 왔어.
So we've said that the self is empty of natural existence, and also that the aggregates are empty as natural existence. So what does that mean?
다 띠똥똥세야 될 똥세텔라 매 만다와 다 뭐야레스.
So the way that they are empty is kind of explained using different examples and names.
똥똥세나 매발 거야 야레스.
So empty kind of helps us to bring forth this idea of an absence, right?
똥좀 만다와 나지 개바스 문제 자기 알아와 스텔라 때는 가서 때는 똥만이 됐다 때에서 버게 시워서야 다 타레스.
So scholars explain that there are five sort of modes of understanding how things are empty. And if we understand some of these, this can also help us.
빼나 오메가 니깔 쇼요 말와스. 오메 니깔아 쇼메바데 나네 메비 동화스.
So the first example is before we churn the milk or before we kind of put the milk to set, at the time it is milk, there is an absence of yogurt, right? Before we've begun processing it. So at the time that it's milk, that there is the absence of yogurt, this is known as the emptiness of a previous absence, the emptiness of a previous absence.
this one, tate tanda tumban이 똥스테 로지 집에 똥세한테 대용 말다스.
Deyang mares.
근데 똥스 대용 말레스.
But that's not the type of emptiness that we are referring to when we talk about this kind of emptiness of inherent existence. That's a different type of emptiness. Tongsu jendakji, nansu goe di mare.
어데 말레스. 다용 쇼이티나. 고마 쇼차차소나.
Yeah.
쇼이티나 다 고마 메차. 알아왔스. 다ken예 요바데 다 시인이라 메비 동화데레스.
So then when we process that milk and it becomes yogurt, the absence of milk at the time of yogurt is the emptiness of non-existence after disintegration. That's known as the emptiness of non-existence after disintegration. So after the yogurt has been formed, the milk can no longer be pinpointed. That's the second type.
어다 대우 똥스 대용 단단한 소시에 대한 말레스.
But that's not the kind of emptiness we're trying to drive at in our understanding either.
다요 또 대화 매비 사쇼나.
Mhm.
범밤매 사주아레스. 뒤동서 대요 말레스.
The next one is in a place where there is no round-bellied object. In the place where there is no round-bellied object, the absence of a vase is total non-existence. So the absence of that vase is total non-existence. But that's not the type of emptiness we're trying to bring forth either.
대성아.
Mhm.
다요 발론을 따매 세네 동서지아레스.
Mhm.
발론 따이 동아 세네.
The absence of a horse in a cow, this is the absence of one thing in another. But that's not the type of absence or emptiness we're trying to point to either.
다 대제대 간에 양아주 단다 롱지시티비 동서야데 말레스 요아레스.
So that's not the type of emptiness that we're talking about, that we're trying to kind of conceptualize when we think about this emptiness of inherent existence.
다원아 빼라빠 간주 동서 롱지시티비 동서야데 원아 빼라빠 간디스레스.
So what would be an example of kind of, maybe not exactly, but the right direction of the kind of emptiness we're talking about when we talk about the emptiness of inherent existence?
빼나 간주 나고 있는 도비까라.
Mhm.
문다고 지프게 시도인들의 문다고 지소저요나.
Uh-huh.
어때 그때 문다고 지 노네라 노아지요아라스.
Ale, di toyo la
Oh,
mimba,
that,
di la lona di.
Serious.
Yeah. So di nakung mare di chiuden so mayong yagi chiu ni zuma di.
님이 나기는 생각 주세요스.
Ale, listen.
단다스 나 콜다.
Nakung kama. Okay.
토림볼 톤다고 전소자야
All
요아라스.
right. So Geshe said, for this example that we're going to give, imagine that you're seeing it from far away, or that you're kind of seeing it vaguely under the cover of night. And there's a reason that he wants to say it this way. So, okay, school, go, so to the example, yeah. So the example is, when you mistake a scarecrow for a human, it is not a human. It is empty of an essence.
저기 와서 어떤 간주 로지지 집에 동서야데 톰메여 마데 코로 로지가 그게 동아래 디와라와스 디동서들레스.
So it is empty of that nature of being a human being. So the emptiness of an essence is the type of emptiness we are trying to discern when we talk about this emptiness of inherent existence.
다 나그는 던데지 많이 받지 간주 눈된다고 지 노샤네는 간주 니바 첨부지 시그라와스.
So if we were to think that we approach this maybe under the cover of night, if we saw the scarecrow, because it's dark, we saw that figure there, we might be very frightened and maybe even think that it's a ghost.
니네 신다고 지 임발라 가로서 딜 하보지 눈된다고 지 손네를 던데 디강에 채소와스.
So why do we have that difficulty of being frightened? Because we misapprehended that object and we were adding some essentiality to it. We were adding some meaning to it that isn't really there.
델라 테니 달로나고 지 코프게시 워차소나. 다 당기 코럽 눈된다고 데 베들라네라. 하는 지바 때문에 맨로고 와스.
When we understand, perhaps we turn on a flashlight or something, when we see that that initial apprehension was completely mistaken, that it was a mistaken apprehension, then that mind of fear is going to totally fall away.
다 가로서 이 가를 따와 이나 쪼쪼 단자 말이봐. 아니 대저 컨트롤 코로스로 빠서는 이네 매바질 할레베 뭐버지 조조요 알아봤어.
So we understand that the objects that we see through this lens of the ignorance grasping at the self, with its attendant afflictions of attachment, anger, and so forth, so much of the object that we're perceiving, we are actually kind of imputing onto it more than it is.
다 대포게 정아주 시라야 보시네 던지가 다 내서 니네 대코로 하보 강가 마임바 니네서 코로지 통소나. 다 대래 대강에 세가 강에 딘지고 용조 등아주 관로.
If we are able to use the sword of wisdom to cut through all of the exaggeration of that misapprehension, we are going to be able to see the thing the way it really is. And when we start to see objects in that way, it's really important to be clear that cutting through that veil of inherent existence doesn't mean that we experience less compassion. Actually, with this type of wisdom behind it, compassion becomes even more powerful. And we'll be able to have an unmistaken cognition of any object that we look at. In other words, our way of seeing things is going to be completely unmistaken. Once we are able to use this and the exaggerations and mistaken apprehensions subside, then the basis for the arising of things like attachment and aversion is undermined. So the attachment and aversion dissipate. And so once that is achieved, then the body and mind are like abiding in this state of peace. So we want to see like the way that things are empty, or you could say tongsul also you could give as like mode of emptiness. This is very important. So I'm getting a battery warning because we changed our setup. So I want to have question and answer. Just let me plug in something. Yeah, he's the guy who said that. No. There we go. Yeah, it was about to drop off.
This one,
So empty of natural existence, right? When we hear that empty, we need to understand. Yep. We need to understand how it's actually empty, because empty can be misunderstood as something not being there at all. But we don't just say empty. We should have the understanding that that empty is pointing to that emptiness, empty of inherent existence, empty of natural existence. This is very important. And we can say this if we understand how things are empty. We can say that they are empty with confidence across the board, because any object or phenomena is necessarily empty of natural existence, empty of existing inherently. So understanding what is not true about the object or our perception of it, this helps us to see the way that it really is. And this also helps us to uncover a very refined understanding of relative truth as well, relative truth in its subtle aspect, which we hinted at a little bit last time. So we shall end the conversation here. If you have to get on with your day, please feel free, but we will have some question and answer after the dedications.
Changju Zemjo Rinpoche Maje Panan Cheju Chi Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gonda Bewa Shu Toni Tawa Rinpoche
마제 바노 젠저제
Jeba
제바
Nyam
냐마
Meba
메바
Yang
고네 곤더
Mewa
메와 주 뇨마 바이
Jite
제다
Kimba
징바
Dang
건더
Zang
sombo
Deyang
대양 대저대
Deda
대다 근저
Gungye
제소
Jesu
달로
Dalo Chir
개와
Gyawa
도도
Dida
돈제
Dangche
라등어
Duso
디서
Shebe
셰베
Gyawa
자와 동제
Dangche
마와
Mawa
공라
Gangche
주더
Chodo
나바데
Dagi
다게
Gewe
자와
Tsawa
너그
Nikun Kyang
좀보
Zambo Jeje
셰저 라등어
Radangwa.
We'll pause there.
그나마
I guess I was in a hurry today, the prayers and everything.
그래서 그걸 전에 됐더니
That's what happens when we start late. Yeah, sorry. So are there any questions?
Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah. So what's the point
Of what?
of anything or everything? It's there's no observer, there's nothing to observe, or there's a realization that there's nothing to observe, or there's a realization of non-existence or no essence. Even the appreciation of it appears to be non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suffering seems to be the basis. The only thing I can think of the logic of leaving suffering behind, but it doesn't leave you much.
Dene tompani hakona dene nganso donda karayeris. Mitsegi donda karayeris. Re de okay nganso adungel mepaso tupgires. Yine chatsangwa tompares dene kandisla gres. So rewa dandin so chatsangwa medrogitus. Sorwa dapo medrogitus. Dene pento karayerisa.
매매매매 뚱반이 하거나 소화 강가 면로 그 말에 세와 치는 거야 쇼바 치는 거야 강가 키로 봐서 요아레스
Actually, it's not the fact that this understanding of emptiness is going to take away your feelings. In fact, positive feelings in minds, like a feeling of love, like a feeling of compassion for others, with our realization of emptiness, these will be enhanced.
단다 요 대한테 가서 노아 뭐뭐 요아레스 세와 야포도레 되는 이나요 다 좌도도 된내는 노아 뭐뭐 키 강가 대지 매워서 요아레스
So right now, actually, because of our lack of understanding of emptiness, the love and compassion that we have in our heart, these are definitely good things. But because they are mixed with this misapprehension of inherent existence, they can also be mixed with minds like, in the case of love and compassion, attachment, for example. Once emptiness is realized, that contamination will kind of fall away.
페나 알레 가서 아시에 먹어봐시 술로 요로 술로네 요론도에 요로네 tul로가 강가 또니도 그 소화티서 그 요아레스
So when we go from the path of accumulation to preparation, and especially preparation to meditation and meditation to seeing, all of those paths that the Bodhisattva is cultivating, getting to the next level really greatly depends upon an increasing understanding of emptiness.
디소이 다 리라와 세가레
Mhm.
파시워시바 이나
Mhm.
뚱바니에서 등이네 하고서나
Yeah.
타방이네 요바지
Yeah.
하고서 말이 방이네 존로야지 하고 그거 거야 소테레스
We can think of our understanding of emptiness not as an absence, but as a knowledge. Once emptiness is understood, we have a knowledge of how liberation from suffering is possible. Once emptiness is understood, we have a knowledge how the extinguishing of ignorance is possible.
길레가 소테르다스 대하고 가레스
So that's the main function of emptiness.
대하고 뚱바니 하마고 다 매바다고 지레스
And so if we understand the importance, we'll see that actually we can't get further along without that understanding of emptiness.
타바 하마고는 순지세야 요바 간지하고 고야 고로 요 말레스
If you don't even understand how liberation is possible, how could you understand that Buddhahood is possible? And if you don't understand that, how could you have conviction that there are really Buddhas there?
타바 요바 순지 요바 하고서라와 다 구대 구바 시와 요바 강가 돈이가 소와티서 하고 소고 요아레스
Understanding that liberation is possible, understanding that there are actually Buddhas there and how they come about, and understanding that the peace of cessation is possible, all requires an engagement with emptiness. If we don't engage with it, we won't be able to understand those things with conviction.
나로서 강에 그 지조 단지 말이봐. 어디 여러 님은 뭐야? 코로스 강가 매봐줘야 되고 콜라들 하고 있는 거라서.
So really, the ignorance grasping at the self is the root of all of the afflictions. So when we understand emptiness, it will help us to see an end to the afflictions, not just that ignorance, but all of the branch afflictions as well.
라마 잠깐비 체만 논제 꼴미다 가디나 지나요. 로서 미처럼 오면 봐시 용기 알아서 알았어.
테마 탐보 톰주도.
미 가디나 손sol다 체만 논진 지그러 와서.
And developing a pramana, a valid cognition of this emptiness, is something that's profoundly transformative. That's why it said that Lama Tsongkhapa, every time he opened the Pramana Vartika, the treatise on valid cognition, he would be so moved he would weep. So liberation is possible, is explained there using reasonings, right? So it's a completely reasoned explanation. It doesn't require a blind faith.
There's
an end to suffering. There's an end to affliction. All of the reasonings of why this is actually the case, not just believing it, but why this is actually the case, are outlined. In particular, in the Pramanavartika, the treatise on valid cognition, this is outlined in the second chapter. So Geshe said it's probably a bit too long of an answer to Rudy's question, but he wanted to say these important things for us to engage with. The reason that we need to understand or engage with emptiness. That's also why Lord Milarepa said the words, having realized emptiness, compassion arose. So that followed that emptiness. Did that answer your question, Rudy?
Yes, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Great.
Okay, I'm glad. I do see a few hands. So whoever would like to go next.
Go ahead, Annie.
My question is about practice, because of when Geshe-la, you began the class, you were talking about recitation of the succession yoga, and I have not really thought of it that way, but it did make me think, because I usually meditate on it, but I did think that I don't understand why we say Masam Jome Sharaporuchin in the beginning, if it just sounds like words to me, or like a little verse.
Sorry, Annie, are you talking about the succession guru yoga?
No, I'm talking about just practice in general, that when I recite the Heart Sutra, I do the Masam Jome beforehand, but it has never really meant anything to me. It's just something I recite. And is there some way to make that more meaningful? Because it just seems like something that I go through, and something I don't really know why. Whereas now I'm understanding the Heart Sutra so much better. I'd like to bring that quality back into it, because it seems to make the whole purpose of doing a daily practice more meaningful.
Yeah, nganso nima reje soya dinso dene perna nganso sherab nimpo kyordu dene nganso gendi masam jume sherab paro chindi lagire rwa kodi tema reje dodang nyamdu kyorgire duas ine nganso di kyoryagi gymsen hakoge omare dene di samlo tane nganso tsik dinso dondag yang hakoge omare tsik dinso tes cheshi jatu gires karinsana ta sherab nimpo dinyane tes tsora shukcheru lebso ane ko yang tupadi dondak tes tingsa mohako ninjogi dusa.
Yeah, so
Geshe said, di bepagi drotan. So I was saying to Geshe, it's like the frog. Remember when we talked in Chakrasambhara about the different types of commentaries that lamas give? And there's one that's like a frog where you leap from lily pad to lily pad. So it's like that. So Geshe will come back to this verse. He touched on a little bit of it today, but he's planning to give you a little bit of it every time. So we will come to an explanation.
Yeah.
So so rest assured, he is going to explain it to the
slowly.
So Geshe said, similarly, you'll notice that we went back kind of in the Heart Sutra to talk more about certain things that we just touched on, but we also kind of jumped ahead to form is empty, emptiness is form. And the reason that he did that lily pad jump was because he really wanted to give people a feeling of like the essence of the Heart Sutra so that they would be interested, motivated in this.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
We have a question from Facebook from Rachel.
Yes.
Can we unpack the difference between the last two of the 5 modes of being empty? Between the absence of horse in cow and absence of the mistaken identity? Is it only the mistake, or is there more we should understand in this 5th?
So the mistaken identity, I take it, Dave, sorry, I'm a little bit slow on the update today. She's speaking about the scarecrow example, I would assume, right?
I suppose. Yeah. Between the absence of horse in cow and the absence of the mistaken identity.
Okay, yeah. And so what's the question about the difference between
Is it only the mistake, or is there more we should understand in the 5th?
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Dene nganso tongsul nga nangla jipadang ngapa dokpa chikyore balang la ta meni chikla chik she mepe tongpa di chikcherwa dene di chik nanglola chik mepare rwa dene ngapa di rwa nganso toyorla mi trulpe se dela mi mepani sana nganso pe di kare hakogures nganso notru denso chik norne dire samne di chikpores dondak jendak chik hakogures
me nganso pena mari patiga ko kadi ina nge nesle yona lapachi yona chepachi sono tone
What this last example is pointing to is how this lens of ignorance causes us to exaggerate or denigrate an object. And on that basis, right, we experience a difficulty. Like the fear that you experience or any other problem that you experience. So when you are able to use emptiness to cut through that ignorance, which exaggerates or denigrates the object and sees the object as it really is, that appearance that may have disturbed you, for example, that gave rise to fear in this case, that also falls away. Yeah. Yeah, so this example actually shows you a difference between two philosophies of thinking about emptiness, known as Zhentong, other emptiness, and Rangtong, self-emptiness. Zhentong is revealed, the other emptiness is revealed by the absence of a horse in a cow, whereas this example that follows of the scarecrow is actually showing us the rangtong, or the self-emptiness.
따도 반로자라바이는 또 개고 현다 진도 동야고 현다 질래서 왔어. 따도 반로자라바이나 또 개도 또 사도 만라와 니디 왔어.
Yeah, you can see that when you have the horse and the cow, the absence of one thing in the other is because they cannot be the same, right? There's an object and an emptiness that exists as they are apart from each other.
된다 동서 걸어보겠다 동니가 동서 된
And because of that, because there's still that differentiation into the because there's these two kind of separate entities, that doesn't allow you to kind of uncover that very most subtle emptiness. Similarly, yeah. So when we say that also things are empty of permanence, when we talk about empty of permanence, that is a type of emptiness, but it's not the mode of emptiness, the profound one that we're trying to uncover here. Yeah. So the emptiness ranging gidrupa le tongwa dang takpe tongwa di.
maybe tato palong to sujiwa.
Yeah.
Tape
tong dang. So these two separate objects of the horse and the cow are a little bit like that emptiness of permanence. And on the basis, for example, of thinking about the horse in a cow, or thinking about the emptiness of permanence, that's not going to get you to understanding the emptiness of inherent existence. I see, Dave. Yes, go ahead.
Rebecca, I saw your hand up for a bit there. Do you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So I really am enjoying this conversation. It's fantastic. I very much appreciate it. So the example of a person as constantly changing and therefore, empty of permanent existence is only a little bit of things. And the example that's so famous of the person walking along the path and seeing the snake and hiding, then seeing the rope and then hiding, and then seeing the dust and goes up and touches the dust and it disappears. That is also not completely empty of permanent existence. Both of those two are not.
Yeah, they're not pointing to an emptiness of inherent existence in the most profound way. Is that what you're saying, Rebecca?
Yes. Is that the case? Okay. Is that the case?
Yes, yes. I think I got you.
Okay.
Then nganso tambo di ruwa nganso mi kechikma gyurwa droya di ruwa di dela tene konso takpale tongwa hako gires. Ine di ranjingi drupa le tongwa droya pentok yomares.
Pentok yomare mares.
Sorry, drogi yomares. Pentok yomares lamate. Drogi yomares. Drogi yomares. Roa. Dene nipadi nganso michik tapadapo chik tambo dul norne tongire dua. Dene konso tanyeru drodu. Dene konso dul mares tapa re samlo tangne. Di yang rangjingi drupale tongwa dang dabore be dabore. Ane nganso yang tela chik lakpajana tela chatsangwa me drogires. Di rangjingi drupale tongwa dang dabores. So Rebecca, and please ask a follow-up if you need to. So what I'm understanding from what Geshe said is that, yes, so that momentariness of the person, this word is kechigma, where they're changing from moment to moment, that emptiness of permanence is not that emptiness of inherent existence.
Okay.
So when I was translating the question for Geshe, I said, at first I said, it doesn't benefit the emptiness of inherent existence. He disputed that. He said, yes, actually, understanding that impermanence will benefit understanding our lack of inherent existence, but it is not an understanding of the lack of inherent existence. So it's two understandings. Then in terms of the other two examples that you gave about the person misapprehending the rope as a snake, and then as they get closer, they see that it's a rope and the absence of fear, or similarly, seeing something that seems solid and touching it and the dust dissipates and it disappears. These examples are actually pointing to the emptiness of inherent existence, whereas your previous examples were not.
Geshe
feels that especially the example of the rope and the snake is a very effective one. In fact, it's one of the rope and the snake is considered to be one of the very best analogies to cover the prasangika view. Geshe would propose another one, a more modern example, which is if you think of the TV so one of the old television sets, you know, when you turn it on, it starts from one pixel and slowly expands to a full picture. Then when you turn it off again, that image, so for example, if you have an image of a red ball filling the screen, that ball will slowly dissolve back into one pixel. This is a good analogy for understanding the view. So you see that, like, it seems like there's maybe that solid ball that is showing in the screen, but when you turn it off, it slowly, those pixels kind of come apart and then dissolve into the final one, which shows that there's no pinpointable sphere or ball there at all.
I just wanted to tell him that most research on eyesight and cognitive function of eyesight does have that happen to individuals when they're actually losing their sight. And it's happened to me. I lost my sight for 2 days. And during that period of time, every single pixel got smaller and smaller and smaller. And first of all, you lost color, then you lost the pixels, then things got much, whatever. And that's also what happens with macular degeneration. I mean, people talk about this as an actual knowable phenomena. So my question is, where in that example is the emptiness of inherent existence? Do you know what I mean?
Of the television example or of the eyesight shifting example?
Well, all of those, I would tell them about the eyesight because it truly is the way your eyesight disappears. But is it that when you see the television, you think that the red thing is actually there, but actually it's not there? Does that make any sense? I hope,
Yes, no, I've got you. So Rebecca, I'm going to share your thing about the eyesight first, and then I'll go to the TV one. Maybe I'll end with that one. Then also, mi trola drogen so konso taya di TV nangshin tets dapodu. Ganso mik ginupa tambo trola drodu ko ngama mik nimani sums pet nakung dapo chasums. Di ngala ganso mik chatsanga tambo sushi me drogires. Dene chashe denso konso sheka dapo yopa sheka dapo me. Dene tama chikyang mepa dapo chigres. Rwa ane nyamyong di ganso rangjingi drupa mepa hakoya pengirebes. Yamena TV gi pe nanglolaya. Rwa ganso kandislagore tambo di tongdu dene pet mepa latene rangjingi drupa mares hakogires tongsul kandeshchik drogires pedi.
매매다 대 소소가 버게 요요 레차와이자 될 단에 로지 매바서야 텐데 페도 유아르와스 저기나.
So he thinks that for people who are able to think about it, this losing or the degeneration of a sense faculty like eyesight could actually be a helpful experience in terms of understanding emptiness.
In the
same way that when we are falling asleep and going from the waking state into the sleeping state, the sort of dissolving of the coarser physical world in our waking state that we experience and the pulling back of the sense consciousnesses, a practitioner can also use this to cultivate emptiness. But, you know, these things are only useful insofar as we can have an experience of them. So for you, because you've had this experience of, you know, the degeneration of your eyesight, then maybe that example is going to be helpful for you to uncover a meaning. Whereas somebody who lacks that experience, it won't be as useful. But what we're pointing to is that if you look for it, you will not be able to find it. That lack of findability helps us locate the emptiness. Dene bolidi pet mepayores kanis hakogre TV gi pedi.
매매매다 그것도 먼저 그 주사지 놓아진 왔어 뭐지. 다 갈래 거 파이인도 그 짠에 라야 매바 쓰고 쳐도 왔어.
It's the same with that sphere on the television screen. At first, it seems that there is some sort of pinpointable, static object, stable there. But when we turn off the television set and it begins to dissolve, it shows that if we look for something findable, we will not be able to locate it. There's nothing pinpointable there. So that lack of findability helps us understand. So one of Geshe-la's friends who practices the generation stage yogas of Tantra also mentioned that television was really helpful for generation stage practice, because when you have a fading out of a screen, so you have like one scene that's happening, right? And then you have a fading out, and then again, the character appears in the screen, but maybe with a completely different facial expression and different clothes. That's very much like our practice of the sadhana, where we're arising everything, dissolving it back into emptiness, and arising it again. So he said that was very helpful for his generation stage practice. So in this case, we would say, you know, where you do the ale tompa nidu jor tompe ngangne. Yeah, so you know when you do the Om Subhava Shuddha Saur Dharma Subhava, everything becomes emptiness from the sphere of emptiness. Right. So Geshe was saying, don't say the whole mantra, just say the point. So from the sphere of emptiness, you can understand that sphere of emptiness as being like the television that gives rise to all those images, or in this case, to the deity of your deity yoga practice.
Oh, yeah, this whole.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome, Rebecca. Thanks. Dave, did we have anyone else?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Might the frog, now or later, come back to the Buddha meditating on the categories of profound perception?
Yes. Dene nganso bepa seriadi rua dene ngaronso
Peva ser keter las matengela mas.
He's saying that I said frog, not him, but I reminded him he did say frog during the Chakra Samvara commentary.
Yes.
But today I said it. Right?
Yeah.
So, but you're asking if we're going to come back to this profound perception.
Yeah, I've always wondered what does that mean exactly, that the Buddha is meditating the categories of profound perception.
Chugi namjangi tingezin la di cheshetes jagire manga tingezin di kandes chikres. Chugi namjangi tingezin.
Me ta chi no to tingez seri chi se atela san de ko jadu jes ke je arte kale kale yungres.
Kare jadange?
De ko jadu je.
Jungkang?
De ko seri tamra wa jadu je ti tu manila. Chi no to seri.
Ale. So the categories of phenomena called profound perception, it involves a kind of for a Buddha, perceiving 108 different categories of phenomena as being empty of inherent existence. And I was saying to Geshe at the same time, and he said, yes, for a Buddha at the same time, and that's why the perception is profound. Yeah. So that's why it's a profound perception, because the Buddha can perceive the emptiness of all those 108 categories of phenomena at the same moment. And those 108 are kind of divided into two broad categories: the afflicted class of phenomena and the completely purified class of phenomena. But Geshe said that we'll come back actually to a further discussion of this. He feels like a good jumping off point is the emptiness of the 5 aggregates. So after we've explored that further, maybe we can go into these categories of phenomena further. Yeah. And this type of concentration is an active concentration. There's another one that's a little bit similar that so, for example, a bodhisattva will be able to do a meditation on a forward understanding of the 12 links of dependent origination and a reverse meditation on the 12 links of dependent origination. So through cultivating with concentration, right, different categories of phenomena, like the forward order and the reverse order of the 12 links of dependent arising, this becomes a cause of being able to perceive all of those profound phenomena of 108 categories in that same moment of concentration. So it's a result, right? That state of profound perception is a result of all of that previous analysis and engagement, actually. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, sorry, I was like, Geshe just said the word Olympics, but I didn't know why I was saying that. So what he's saying is, I'm sorry, it's like the different medals of the Olympics, right? So it's like you kind of get a bronze medal and a silver medal, and then this gold medal with that increasing ability to move across these categories of phenomena. Yeah. So that's also a difference between the solitary realizer or hearer's experience of emptiness and the Arya Bodhisattva's experience of emptiness. They can't simultaneously use many reasonings to kind of contemplate their emptiness, right? But because their final destination is liberation, they don't need to cultivate in as vast a way. Yeah, there's more to us. Did that answer? Did you get an answer somewhere in there, David?
Yeah. No, it's good. And also, thank you, Geshe, very much for explaining the causes for producing that, which is to be able to meditate forward and backwards across the 12 dependent links. That's interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Gyudi ko gaswa rwa dinso gyadang gye nyamdu tongyagi gyuchik nganso perna tenje giyenlak chuni yadro denedile doktsur yong denedela tenega cheru nupadrogire duas. Yeah.
So it feels like you kind of accumulate them as you add and accumulate as you go forward and backwards, and that's how you can eventually get them all.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like an incremental expansion. Yeah, it's like an incremental expansion. Yeah.
Lumbani yarwa.
Lumbani.
Lumbachil papa nila.
Yeah.
Kubachin pake sal matuni.
Yeah.
Sipa togres yaris.
Ale.
Nor cheren rosona.
Ale.
Ado senge yin pap ta do zina.
Yeah.
Kuba papa togretene. Kuba matuni sipa togba maris.
Ale. Los. So senge yarudi tak.
So there
is in oh my goodness, we are so in the Kedra really needs to study more. So in the Abhisamayalaмкara, in the ornament of clear realizations, there is a lion-like there is a brave lion-like concentration. And the example that's given is of like different apex predators. So the tiger, right? He can like jump from like his home to one place. And they talk to such a chikne chung, then he can jump from his home to one place, but if he lies down in that place, then he'll like, I don't know, but for some reason he'll have to walk back to his home. A lion is not like that. Once he jumps from his home to one place, he can immediately jump back to his home without lying down. So the strength of each jump amplifies the power of jumping, and he can go between different places. Yeah. So Geshe said that connected with the Abhisamayalaмкara, the ornament of clear realizations, there is this lion-like single-pointed concentration, and we will come to a further explanation of this. And Geshe said these 108, there's a lot of vocabulary here. So what he'll do is he'll prepare the vocabulary for me, and then I'll translate this vocabulary, or maybe it's already translated, and then we can go through those.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's nice. I'm glad people are enthusiastic about this. Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay, B, go ahead.
Go ahead, B. Yes.
I don't remember if I asked these questions before. If I did, I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. Go ahead.
When Geshe talk about the TV zooming in and out, is that similar to how sometimes emptiness is being explained? Like if you look at a flower and then you zoom in and in and in, then you see all the molecule and the atoms, and then the flower disappear.
Yes.
Is that meditation on emptiness? I will ask this, B, but just to clarify, the example of, I think zooming in is a really good example with the TV, but that's not the one that Geshe gave. It was more of a fading in and out when you turn the TV on or turn the TV off. Like with those old style of TV where the image collapses into like the one pixel. Okay. So actually there's something different. It is, yeah. But anyways, I think your question is still a good one. So let me ask Geshe for some thoughts on that anyway. Nganso kochena nganso TV gi pedi rwa nganso camera di mi ta nyeru drone konso go cheru dro ta ring ru drone chungru dro ngala payen di mares nganso on chedu lamsang rimo legires off chedu dene rimo jubshi chung chikla martim gires di yar droya dang martimia dene ko
yang nganso meto gi pe di samlo tangna morangi ko nangshin nganso meto gi pe samlo tangna de nganso tambo meto yu tempo chik da pochagires ini ta nyeru lebji de nganso di kandis lagari shoma re chashi chi re chene tontu gires de dela tenne tomba chik hakoye yores
어때 때인데 여러 와서 대패 짐이 민지 같이 뭐래서 가대이나 다 이나서 또 많이 라야라
너만 가서 가 싱통다 뭐다
슈도도 던질 배정 여러 와서
yeah, so Geshe said that, so yeah, it was different examples because with the TV, it's more like when you turn it on and the image fills your screen, and then when you turn it off, the image slowly dissolves. So it was more like an arising and a dissolution. However, this example of your flower, Geshe said, is also a very good one because we see a unitary thing and then we start to see its parts. So I was reminding Geshe of the example that he gave, which is a bit like yours, which is that when you're driving in a car, you might see like a round sphere, a solid round sphere in the distance. But as you get closer, you see that there's actually leaves and twigs, and you start to realize that that sphere is actually a bush that somebody has like trimmed into a spherical shape.
아주 따와 차로 강가 로로 kumba 이내래 매 이내래 롱 이내래 예 이내래 뭐뭐지 추바라 추바솔 따바 존지 요아라 와스.
So whether we talk about house, whether we talk about self, whether we talk about others, using this kind of mode of understanding, we see that they are designated by a coming together of a collection of parts. By coming together of a collection of parts. Ignorance would tell us that that assembly of parts is a unitary, inherently existent thing. That's what the ignorance would tell us.
So
a rough understanding of the view makes us realize actually that house is designated on the basis of its part, right? It's dependently designated. And being able to see how that thing is not unitary, but arises due to a dependent designation on the basis of its parts and the like. This is like, actually, we say coarse, but a very useful approach to the view. So we can say things are empty of inherent existence. That might even roll off the tongue fairly easily if you've heard it a lot of times before. But to actually see that, But that's not how we see things, right? We still have that appearance of them being unitary, independent things. So this kind of way of thinking, where we break them down into their parts, can be very useful.
Well, okay. My question is more like, we talk about practice where it is accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. So, in Lama Tsongkhapa describe a very precise process of how one meditate on the emptiness of self. So first you generate this solid self within yourself, and then you hold that, and then you use that to go through the analysis of one or many, the five reasoning. But what we are talking here, of course, is something I think more introductory. So if one were to do just this introductory and rest on the sense of something being empty, is that actually emptiness, meditation on emptiness? Does that accumulate the merits on wisdom?
So the meditation on emptiness is the accumulation of wisdom, right? So how does merit fit into this? Are you asking if it's as...
I'm talking about the type of meditation on emptiness that will actually beginning to counter our inert grasping.
So you're asking if this breaking down into the parts and so forth, or the meditation on the lack of findability, is this going to help us to have the same powerful understanding that, for example, going through the 5 reasonings outlined by Lama Tsongkhapa?
Yeah, in a sense that it will have the effect of countering the inert grasping. So basically, I'm asking if this is a complete meditation on emptiness, because when we talk about dependent arising, that the dependent on parts, dependent on cause and condition, and dependent on imputation. So if this one is more like depending on parts, if that is where we stop, then, or even we go to cause and condition, but we don't talk about imputation, is that actually a complete meditation?
Now, sorry, now you've put so many things in there, B. Now I've lost your original question. Sorry. Because first we were talking about the 5 reasonings, then we were talking about parts and the like. Now we're talking about imputation.
I've been told that of the 5 reasoning, any one of the reasoning is considered to be a complete meditation on emptiness, depending on which reasoning works best for you.
Yeah.
But example of the flower is not one of these 5.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It's kind of like a step before you get to one of these 5.
Okay.
So would that meditation have the power of actually countering the inert grasping? The grasping of emptiness of true existence as the way it is defined by Prasangika. Okay, is that okay?
So yes, but what is it countering? It's countering the ignorance grasping at the self. That's what you mean, right?
Yes, that's what.
Is it enough to do that?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay. Nganso Lama Tsongkhapa Rigpa nga chikyores. Ane Rigpa nga dinso tompani ngone togyala Rigpa nga chatsangwa gogires chik gogires. Di tambo diche. Dene nipadi perna nganso chik selna nganso nyegi yomares chik droson. Di Rigpa nga naola yores yomares.
Tedu yardeja zores.
Yine metok seriadi rua tanieru nieru drone dene chashe dinso drona di Rigpa nga naola yomares. Dene nganso tompa nigi gom gyabtang di metok di double chik nganso tanzin ma Rigpa mepa so tugirebes yamena nganso Rigpa nga gi naola chik drogres yamena nganso Rigpa nga chatsangwa gogires.
Me Rigpa nga noni ta zodu ko ya Rigpa nga karasono tona soso poke buchiro was. Ji ha ko chasona anga ha ko yungyo.
So you're correct, B, in what you said about these 5 reasonings outlined by Lama Tsongkhapa. If we understand one of those 5 reasonings, then the understanding of the remaining 4, the understanding of those remaining 4 will get much easier. Ngune topa kela nga chatsangwa gogires chik gogires.
Nga chatsangwa ji ha ko chasan shod le yungyo res yendara ji.
So really, dene nga chatsangwa nyamdu drogires topa ngune kela?
Yeah.
So actually, really, the realization kind of comes from all 5 of these reasonings together. But understanding one is going to help the other 5 to unfold more easily. So I think that's the first part of your question. So the flower might not fit into that exactly word for word, but the awareness that this meditation on the flower is trying to bring forth, which is that if we try to find that flower, as we come closer and closer, we see that it's actually a collection of parts and there's nothing findable. That lack of findability is actually the spirit of one of those reasonings, nonetheless, although it's not exactly the same.
So
it's really that flower, when you see that it's a collection of parts, that helps you to see that is a dependent arising, which is a key facet of one of these 5 reasonings. Then metok di tes lilawa daporabe.
Lilawa to maravas chi hako sasona singe.
Yeah.
Nets zani raya meba chi hako sasona. Ani kanga lilawa chonda.
So there's not really, we can't really say like one is easy and one is advanced or whatever. It's more like whichever of those ways of thinking or examples helps you to be able to see that there is nothing findable or pinpointable is going to do the job. But because, most of us just can't think about something one way and get it, or just think about something one time and really get it, we have all of these 5 reasonings presented, and we can alternate through those if we're motivated to do so. What you could say is that you wouldn't be able to develop that understanding or realization of emptiness using a meditation disconnected from those 5 reasonings.
Another way of me trying to ask is this. Lama Tsongkhapa emphasized a whole lot about identifying object of negation. And in those 5 reasoning, you are actually looking for the object of negation and not finding it.
Ganso gaksha hakogres Lama Tsongkhapa sungsung ine ripa nga denso pesho tanda ganso gakja tsene ratu gyomares.
That's
the best. Looking for the object and not finding it is the best. Looking for the object to be negated and not finding it is the best.
So in the flower example.
Hold on, B. He's not done, but I'll come back to you. But he wants to say more. So to really understand the function of each of these 5 modes of reasoning, we want to understand the object of negation that's kind of in the background, underpinning that mode.
They're saying
that like that object of negation isn't a thing, essentially, right? Because we're trying to negate it. We're trying to say it isn't a thing. So that's what the reasoning is kind of trying to bring us to. So you can understand it in the reverse. You can think of like those objects of negation first, and then you can think of the reasoning. So if you say there's not an elephant in your house to somebody who's never seen an elephant, you're going to need to explain to them what an elephant is, or to show them a picture or something, right? It's a little bit like that. So that's somebody's dog is hungry. So that's how it kind of is the object of negation. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. That with the flower example, a person to simply see the flower disappear. The person wasn't seeing a truly existent flower disappearing. So
no, but you're seeing the parts of the flower be. You're not seeing the flower disappear.
So in the parts of flower, you're not seeing the flower. So it is the flower that disappear. It is not a truly existent flower that disappear.
Now, so maybe
I'm saying
I got you. Let me translate this bit. It's better to do smaller chunks because then I can get you clear answers. Now, so metok di chashe mangru drone rwa dene metok di rangshin ki drupa metok di mepa chagyo mares karin sena nganso chashe denso tongi ores.
자 자제 돼서 배들러는 거 왔잖아요. 라야메가 쳐서나.
Yeah.
강가 로지메가 레송아서 매도도 차제도 강가.
But the same, if you break down the parts, trying to seek some sort of essence and finding them, you won't be able to find that at all. And you just keep going down and down and down. You drive down and down and down, and that lack of findability is what takes you to the understanding. If you're holding on to even one mode of existence of that flower, not even a petal of it, even just an atom of it as really being there, you haven't completed the exercise. Yeah. So in the Chakrasamvara Tantra, it says that we have to be able to recognize and to determine the lack of findability of even the top of a hair. And the top of the hair is said to be divided into hundreds and thousands of components. So the main thing that starts as a flower, as well as its parts, as well as the branches of all of those parts, we have to continue the exercise until we think, if I look for it, I will not be able to find it. That lack of findability needs to be established.
Or what is it that I'm not finding? I'm not finding a flower.
We're 35 minutes over, by the way. But yes, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah. No, I just said we're 35 minutes over. Like, I mean, we could continue this, I think, for another hour, but at some point, I mean, I don't know, because
I can stop if this is time to stop. Yeah.
Let me ask Geshe. Yeah. Do you have one final thing, B, that maybe like one final thing you want to ask?
What I'm saying is that when we say not finding, in this particular example, what is it that we are not finding? A general undifferentiated flower, or a truly existent flower that I'm not finding?
Nanso Sena Ragyomares Nyea Mepati Rangjingi Drupa ki metok res metok ki chashe res kare resa. Yes. Yeah. When we first cognize that flower, when we first see that flower, that appearance of true existence holds for the flower and all of its parts, not just the flower as the unitary object, but also its petals, its leaves, and so forth. So what we're trying to refute is the inherent existence of any of those. Yeah. So first, we break it down to its parts as a way of diffusing the appearance of true existence of the unitary flower itself. Right? Then the parts are left, right? So we have this assembly of parts. So that appearance of the truly existent flower, we've challenged that successfully, right? But there's still the appearance of true existence of each of those parts. So we have to go down further and try to also determine their lack of true existence. So, for example, you don't have to eliminate them, though, to perceive the lack of inherent existence. So, for example, when we say that there is an I that is designated on the basis upon the aggregates, but we want to see how it is empty, we try to locate the I within each of those aggregates. Then that perception of the inherently existent I disappears. It's that appearance of inherent existence which goes away. The aggregates are still left behind. Before you did that meditation, you thought that not only the self, but also each of those 5 aggregates as an entity, as a separate entity, was actually inherently existent. The I, the appearance of inherent existence of the I, is a little bit easier to refute because the dependent designation is clear. But once you determine that lack of inherent existence of the I, you then apply that same reasoning to each of the 5 aggregates. It's just like with the flower. So you have the unitary flower and its lack of inherent existence, and then the petals and the leaves and the stem and the whatever, pollen, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. once you're able to determine the lack of inherent existence of that first part of the picture, you're actually halfway there. You are halfway to being able to successfully negate the object to be negated. Gaksha di rangjingi drupares labna. So and sorry, B, I know you're familiar, but I know that some folks might not be as familiar with these teachings. So I just want to clarify that when we talk about the object to be negated, we're talking about inherent existence, right?
다요 과자 자세 자티니에다. 과자 자세 자티 메두 지고 코로라요 자사요 자사요 하러 왔어. 년도 라요 자사요.
Yeah. So I think I personally I'm a bit I'm worried if I continue, I'm going to confuse you guys more, because I think we'll have to go to even further reasonings, and I'll have to look those up to deliver them all to you. So are people cool if we leave the discussion here? We can pick it up next time, I promise. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So please bring forth your questions next time, and we will explore this even further.
Thank you for Geshe example. But I have something very precise that I was trying to get at. I'll do that next time.
Oh, can you do it in a capsule? Can you describe what you're looking for in a sentence? Like, if you can be very concise, that can sometimes help the answer be sharper, rather than trying to cover every exception.
For us who have received this teaching, we are very clear about true existence, object of negation, and all of that. But for people who have not received the teaching on object of negation, they are just simply say, okay, the flower now disappear in the atoms. What kind of understanding are they actually getting if they have not already been taught the idea of object of negation?
Nanso gagja di hakona wa dene metok di nyungru drone. Konso o metok di mares tanda chashe res. Chashe dinso mares tanda konso kandeslagre tela dawudi du dinso res. Ine konso gagja mepasoe dan tanyawa mares. Karinsena konso gagja di hakogyo mares. Dene konso gomjaya di netso chik chembo chik netso chung mambo chik chagire mato gagja la negyo mares.
Yes,
you're absolutely correct, B, and that's why Lama Tsongkhapa emphasizes developing an understanding of the object of negation first. Yep. The problem, why this is a problem for us, is our apprehension of the object, for example, the flower, and it's that appearance of inherent existence are mixed together like milk and water. It's not like they're kind of like two separate things that we can easily pull apart, right? The way that we're seeing the object and its appearance and seeing that appearance of inherent existence are very much intertwined. And until actually we're close to being able to develop a valid cognition of emptiness, it's not, in fact, easy at all to separate the appearance of the object and the appearance of inherent existence. We can explain it, but in terms of how it's appearing to our mind, that's still a big jump. So what we actually have to do is an analytical meditation that isn't just fixed on one thing, but is actually willing to jump between things to further our understanding. So to think about the object of negation itself, and then to try to use things like lack of findability as a way of discerning the emptiness of a particular phenomena. But how this actually works on the meditation cushion is if we continue to meditate and we think that, okay, that findable, pinpointable flower that seems to be there, it is no longer there. And then if we have this feeling there is nothing pinpointable or findable at all, we need to rest on that feeling. If we over-intellectualize and then go, okay, there's a feeling of it not being there, but what's the object of negation, will actually spoil the meditation. So it's a very fine-tuning. So Kedrup Rinpoche, so one of Lama Tsongkhapa's two main disciples, he explained this as a possible pitfall. So we have to be careful of that. Yeah. But if I look for it, I cannot find it. The actual real feeling or conviction of that lack of findability, that's not going to be something that's easy to uncover for most of us, right? That only comes with us engaging again and again and again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Geshe said, other than going through it all again, he's not sure how to clarify, but also, if you want to send an email with your thoughts on this, I'm happy to do that too. And also we can revisit it next time. But I think I'm glad. Yeah, Geshe said we have to converse again and again. So we're both very grateful for these discussions. I also want to clarify to people, you may have things planned in your day. So if you need to leave when the class is over, feel free. But we'll just discuss and hopefully, take a little bit more time and come to a good understanding. But maybe for now, we'll leave it here. Yes. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Briefly dedicate again. Amazing.
And thank you, everybody, for the engagement and discussion. It makes, because otherwise it's just dry philosophy. When we have a discussion, it also helps Geshe to see what you understood. So thank you, everyone, for participating, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.